So you expand and now you've lost some clientele. You've burned a lot of cash.
Mm-hmm.
This goes under, right? So when does it go under?
Okay, so it just didn't go under until COVID.
COVID
was the nail in the coffin. So the corporate wellness account, because that's where most, like a lot of the money came from, I was able to prop up even the larger space with the corporate account to keep it break even, but also keeping some great clients that we had at the gyms. You know, the people that were left were really the glue in the fabric that some people there that are just amazing people that some great relationships there. But the issue was, we were able to prop it up with the corporate account, and then we get furloughed because it's hard to have group classes when there's no place to hold group classes
or a group
in an office or a group to have those classes.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough, like in it's not the product itself that diminished, because we went in and out of Chapter 11 with this group. They never missed a payment on us to us. So that was nice. And the issue was just not having a space to work out with. And technically, we're still furloughed, but I don't see it coming back anytime soon, if at all. And that's unfortunate. But in retrospect, we don't expand to the new space or the larger space. We're still operating right now, and we're still going. I think it's really what it came down to.
How does it feel? Like describe how it feels when you're going like this and you start to round that corner and your trajectory isn't growing anymore, but you are you then diving in to try to save it? Is it kind of is what it is and you just make adjustments along the way? Like what was your mind like?
There's definitely some overcompensation in some areas. So there's some panic, right? You're so used to this, you think it's the normal, right? And I can equate that to this is technically a part of an oil and gas podcast. Remember what leasehold was like 3 years ago?
So leasehold is the right to drill an area of land. That's right. And this was growing because you had a new field that was being discovered, and so a lot of land that needed to be drilled and therefore needed to be
right.
leased.
And so it was leased, and then it became overvalued, right? And so you're thinking, okay, this is great.
Very hot.
This is the normal.
Yeah.
Right. This is what we do, and it's impossible not to make money here because we're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And in actuality, we grew too fast. We spent too much money on something that we thought was going to be amazing because we're going based off the last, a small amount of data, right? And then you're
talking about the industry.
I'm talking about me right now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the new space, but it also is correlated to the industry itself, where we expanded and then spent all that money, and then we realized that what we had within our actual cash flow was perfect.
So this is really what drives my own takeaway from my business. We were very fortunate to sell to a strategic acquirer January right before COVID.
Right.
Had that not happened, I don't know that I'm not sitting in your chair talking about, what could have happened with my company. There's the journey of entrepreneurship is so fragile in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, like obviously some things are in your control. A lot of it's maybe outside of your control. And everything's manageable, but when you're in the middle of running a company, it's hard to feel like you know what you're doing. And it's then therefore very hard to feel like you know what you're doing and that it's correct. Really you only know that you did a good job when you're done.
It's all hindsight.
It's all kind of hindsight with one stage or the other. The whole journey is very fragile, and it really, like, my heart goes out to you. I can remember times when we had key clients that were showing signs of weakness, or we had just hired somebody new and we needed them to follow a plan, and we were maybe planning on exploring a new vertical with a new type of client, and the early signs there weren't very positive or were mixed relative to the bread and butter. You just try a lot of things, and I know that feeling well. There's a little bit of panic that sets in when things don't go according to plan? I mean, Harris, you the sneakers?
Oh yeah, I was gonna touch base on that. So I tried something and I failed very quickly and drastically. But the hardest part was once I'd failed, going back to the people who knew me and kind of living with that. Living with, oh yeah, I tried this and it
Things
totally
like, hey,
did
Harris,
not
how
work
are those
out.
shoes coming along? Like,
And I'll
those
be like,
kinds of
they're not. Not doing that.
Did you find that you were harder? You were way harder on yourself than anyone else could have been.
Right. I think, yeah, I was very hard on myself afterwards. A little bit of a depressive moment there.
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
It's
too,
embarrassing.
Right?
So I was wondering how you handled it yourself.
Right. All the stages, no, there's a huge embarrassment factor. Depression may not be the right word, but you feel like you let other people down. For me, it's about letting people down, especially the clients that were with me from the beginning. That's what hurt me the most. Is like this is the place that they have poured themselves into. They've financially, CrossFit's not cheap, right? And so they paid money. They paid good money for a long time because they believed in what I was doing, and then to turn that around and say, well, I failed you. That was the hardest thing for me, in all of that, and so that's still something that I struggle with.
How'd they respond?
Positively, obviously.
Like, what does that mean? Positively, like, oh man, it's okay. Like you're doing the good things. Like you gave it a good shot. Like what does positively mean?
They were upset. They were upset because they lost something that they loved. But at the end of the day, they're on Team John.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is, because they didn't just buy into the gym, they bought into me and what I was doing. Right. And so that's another aspect of it is the fact that you have people that actually believe in you as a person, regardless of whether or not they're paying you money for a service. Right. And so after the fact, you realize that people are actually in your corner. I think that helped me a lot. Just understanding that people, still believe in me, whatever I'm doing. Right. And so having that experience, that entrepreneurial experience, for better, for worse, I think was, we talked about my lack of education, kind of was my education, at the time, because, I learned so much about every aspect of business because you have to.
Yeah.
And, not just that, but you learn so much about yourself and what you're capable of. And, the early mornings, the late nights, and then the extra work you put in just to sorry guys, I'm just super popular. The extra work you put into the gym or the business itself, so that some little aspect of it can be better, right? You nitpick on every little piece of it, and you take ownership of it because it's yours. And having that experience kind of prepares you for whatever's going to come your way, because like that was some tough stuff.
Yeah.
Like, getting in the minutia of everything, and then now having the ability to take that experience and find that it's transferable to a lot of other areas, I think was the biggest takeaway for me in all of that.
Was there a surprise amount of joy? May not be the right word, but maybe depth or richness in the relationships when you were having those sorry guys conversations with your clients and friends? Yeah,
I think those came later. At first, it was a lot of embarrassment, so you're clouded by that. And then you have some conversations after the fact where they're like, "Hey, you need to take a step back and look at what you did. Like, you changed. Like, you had the ability to change some people's lives, not just because they're off of pre-diabetes medicine. They're not just because they've lost, in some cases, 100 pounds, whatever." It's really
no big deal. Like life changing.
Like, those are physical changes, but I think it's more important that you get a takeaway. It's like the relationships that we've built, the relationships that we've had, and that between people at the gym too, that we've kind of connected people on. The footprint that we leave is a lot bigger than what we realize. When you're in a relationship-driven business like that, and really every business is relationship-driven, and you can call it business or not business, it doesn't matter. I think that the power of relationships is real, and I think that this endeavor helped me realize that in ways that I didn't know existed. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from this, because we call it a failure. I have gone full circle on this, and I don't believe it was a complete failure, just because of the conversations I've had with people after the fact. Helped me kind of realize that. It took me out of that, depression or whatever you want to call the sadness
sadness. Yeah.
The overwhelming grief that happens
Yeah.
because it's like you're losing a loved one almost because
Yeah.
it's just something that you've poured yourself into for so
Right.
long.
Yeah.